Hello, everyone. Today, I'd like to share some research on the use of cannabinoids with children with intellectual disabilities and autism. So let's get started. The first one is plasma anandamide concentrations are lower in children with autism spectrum disorder. Anandamide, as I wrote here, is an endocannabinoid. That means that our body produces it. And it regulates our mood, digestion, and sleep, among other functions. So it's quite important. And in a sample of 59 people, it was found that it was significantly lower on people diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And at the end, the conclusion says that this data suggests that impaired anandamide signaling might be involved in the pathology of ASD. These studies I'm going to share from now on are interventions. So they try cannabinoids, especially CBD, but also small amounts of THC with children with different results. So let's have a look at them. The first one is a placebo-controlled trial. So that means that there is a group that receives a placebo and a group that received the actual CBD oil in this case. So this sort of study is very good because you can compare equivalent groups and the results that they get, whether the treatment, the CBD oil, is effective or not, or it's just placebo. So in this case, it's a very small study of 8 participants. What they used was 98% CBD oil. We don't know what the 2% is. It could be THC. We just don't know. And the children were aged between 8 and 16. They had intellectual disability. It was an oral solution. We have the concentration here. They started with a small dose. They incremented it gradually. That lasted for 8 weeks. For some reason, one of the children in the treatment group dropped out. At that point, at the point of results, we're comparing 3 children in the treatment group and 4 children in the placebo group. There were no serious adverse events and no serious reactions, so that's really good. This is a safe treatment. And all parents reported they would recommend the study to other families with children with similar problems. So here we are talking about children with intellectual disabilities and behavioral problems. That's what we were trying to intervene in this trial. All 3 participants, as I said, it was only 3 participants left in the treatment group with outcome data in the CBD group, that's the treatment group, reported clinically significant change in behavior in contrast to none of the 4 in the placebo group. So there was no change in behavior in the placebo group. It's a very small sample. That's the link. I'll leave the links in the description, don't you worry. And that is a table that summarizes some of the results that they achieved after the treatment. So we can see here is the before the treatment, and that's after the treatment. So we can compare irritability. It was 26.3 in some scale that they used. That's not relevant to us, really. And after the treatment, it was down to 14.3. In the placebo group, I see that there are some improvements as well. So that could be due to other interventions that they are using. But we can see that it's much less. It could also be the placebo effect, really. So you can see irritability, social withdrawal, stereotypic behavior, hyperactivity or non-compliance, and inappropriate speech. So things like swearing and being rude. So there were improvements in all of these problems. Moving on. We have brief report, cannabinol-rich cannabis in children with autism spectrum disorder and severe behavioral problems. So here we've got a sample of 60 children with ASD and severe behavioral problems. There were some adverse reactions to the intervention. There were sleep disturbances, irritability, and loss of appetite in some of the children. There was a severe reaction with a girl who ended up having a psychotic event and ended up needing antipsychotic medication. So that is quite concerning. In that particular case, she was taking a particularly high dose of the treatment, I have to say. So we need to be careful, even though this is all natural and mostly safe, we need to be careful not to overdo it, because it can become really unsafe. So start slowly if you want to follow any of these interventions. Use high quality products, legal products, because illegal, you don't know what you're getting. So use something that is legal, that is as regulated as possible, and don't exceed the recommended dose. Just keep the children safe. The product contain mostly CBD and some THC in a 20:1 ratio. So that means 20 parts of CBD and 1 part of THC, which is about 5%. It's very small, but it seems to have an effect. Unfortunately, in a lot of places, THC is still not legal for medical purposes. In most countries, I think we need to just use CBD and see if that helps. That was in Israel. I think in Israel, THC is legal for medical purposes. So it was a cannabis oil, sublingual administration, starting a small dose. We always start with a small dose and increase it gradually and monitor for any reactions. They started with a 20:1 ratio, but they found that there was an insufficient response. So they increased it to a 6:1, so 6 parts of CBD, 1 part of THC. It seems like with a higher THC proportion, they found better results in this trial. So adverse events: hypervigilance, leading to aggravation of sleep problems, restlessness, irritability, and loss of appetite. So nothing too concerning, but it can be quite annoying. 3 children had to stop the treatment because they got really irritable. This is the girl that ended up with a psychotic episode. So you can see that she was receiving 6.5 milligrams per kilogram per day, which is pretty high dose. Cannabinoid treatment for autism, proof of concept, randomized trial. So here we have a decent sample in this one, 150 participants, age 5 to 21, diagnosed with ASD, autism. So in this case, they use whole plant cannabis extract. So that was including CBD, THC, and other cannabinoids in smaller amounts. The treatment lasted 12 weeks with a 4-week washout. That means that they stopped the treatment for 4 weeks, and another 12 weeks crossover to assess how well it's tolerated. So down to results. The results in this trial were mixed. So they didn't find any improvements or any changes in the scale HSQ-ASD. This is a caregiver-related scale designed to assess the severity of disruptive and not compliant behavior in children. So there wasn't any improvement in that. Then there is another scale, the APSI, and this is a tool, like a questionnaire again, that assesses parental stress perceived by the parents themselves of young children with autism. And it doesn't seem like it differs from groups, from the treatment group and the control group. On the other hand, they found that disruptive behavior was either much or very much improved in 49% of the whole plant extract group. That's 45 children, versus 21% on the placebo group, that their behavior improved, basically. So there was an improvement in behavior, in disruptive behavior in both groups, but it was much more in the treatment group. So that seems that there is some effect in some areas, but not in others. Adverse effects, that's always important. There was some somnolence and decreased appetite in some of the children, but nothing too concerning. They conclude that the evidence for efficacy of these interventions are mixed and insufficient. So as I said, it's not quite clear. Here we have a case study. Case studies are quite interesting because they're quite detailed on what they do, what the results are in that particular individual. The bad thing about it is that you can't extrapolate to the general population because it's just one person. But it's nonetheless interesting, so I wanted to share it with you. So we're talking about a 15-year-old boy with autism, selective mutism, anxiety, uncontrolled epilepsy. That means that he was taking medication for epilepsy and it was working well for him. So after 3 months on the CBE, that is CBD and THC, so we can see that that is 4 milligrams of CBD and 0.2 milligrams of THC. So after 3 months on this intervention, they noticed mild improvements in anxiety symptoms, and after 9 months, they reported an improvement on social anxiety and irritability. So it ended up being quite significant after 9 months. He became more motivated and energetic and ended up losing 5.4 kilograms after starting this treatment. At one point, his mom started weaning him off the CBE because he needed to go to a trip and it was probably a bit troublesome to trouble with that medication. And she noted an immediate change. So he was more irritable and more aggressive. So he goes on the medication, he gets better, his behavior and his motivation, his anxiety. He comes off this medication, the CBE, and starts becoming more irritable and aggressive. So definitely that's doing something in his brain. Remember that he had epilepsy, so the family decided to wean lamotrigine, which is anti-epileptic drug, while remaining on the CBE treatment. But unfortunately, he started to have seizures again. We have seen in other research that CBD and cannabinoids can be used to help with epilepsy, and in some cases, it can be quite effective, in fact, but not in this particular case. So it's not for everyone. And finally, we have this table that I've taken from the study titled Cannabidiol and Neurodevelopmental Disorders in Children, which also includes studies with adults. So that's a review of the use of cannabinoids with people with different disorders such as schizophrenia, how much they had and what the results were. So I'll let you just have a quick look. Feel free to just pause it and have a good read. So things like autism, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and epilepsy. So quite a variety of studies that they reviewed. So there we go. I hope you found this interesting and helpful. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye. If you like this video and think that others can benefit from this content, please like, share or subscribe. It all helps me reach more people. and I'm sure it can make a big difference to many families. Thank you.